So Gangsta episode 11 is here. So Gangsta episode 11. Okay, so we have a character death with this episode. Actually, multiple character deaths, like a shit ton. Like there's just bodies hitting the floor constantly throughout this entire episode. And definitely, I guess, a terrible sight to see. I mean, a lot of fucking death in this episode. And it just goes to show you the atmosphere that this episode really tries to, portray. But the main character you want to really focus in on that died in this episode was Doug. And I'm kind of sad to see Doug die, because he was a really cool character. I liked his, style, I liked, the way he portrayed himself. I liked, the voice actor, and I liked, his kind of role in the series. And seeing him die, I'm actually upset about that, because he had a lot of potential as a character to be very good, and to see him killed off like this, it's kind of sad. But it also goes to show you that characters can die in the series, so that's kind of what this series was trying to imply. Anyone can die, and tags die. That's kind of what the main point of that scene was. But really getting into the scene, though, as an anime watcher that has not read the manga to this point, the scene of Doug's death, I felt like was poorly executed. It did not really impact me emotionally as it probably should have, because of some of the way the music was used. Like, the music choice of Doug's death, along with the way the animation was done, it just did not, I guess, give the scene that oomph about it, to where you're like, oh my god, this is just fucking depressing. It wasn't like that to me, because I just felt like they could have used some form of better music to portray that scene for Doug's death and his passing away, but they really didn't. And so it kind of upsets me a little bit, because his death seemed very anticlimactic. I'm sad to see him go as a character, because he had a lot of potential, but I'm not really affected to where I'm upset and want to cry because of the way it was done. And that is one of the main points of this episode, actually, was Doug's death. Talking about other scenes specifically, the episode felt like it had a lot of stuff going down. Like, there was a lot going down at once. And surprisingly enough, there was no Warwick or Nicholas in this episode. Like, if you did not realize that, yeah, there was no Warwick or Nicholas throughout this entire episode. You didn't even see them once, unless you're watching the opening and ending song. But when it comes to actually fresh new scenes, yeah, there's no Nicholas or Warwick. So if you like those characters and you need them in the episode to really feel happy about, a Gangsta episode, you're probably going to be disappointed, because you don't get to see them at all in this episode. But that's not really the main thing I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is how there's so much going on at once, and putting it bluntly, some of the scenes, or majority of the scenes of this episode when it came to the fighting, was fodder just dying. And majority of the characters dying was just no-name characters that I personally couldn't even care about, just to demonstrate the strength of these hunters. And I think we kind of all already knew that these hunters were very devastating, judging by how they were in last week's episode, and kind of the entirety of this episode was to showcase these hunters being extremely strong, kicking ass, and that's what majority of the beef of this episode was. Just these hunters going in, wrecking these no-name fodder people that are Twilights, and just putting them down in the dirt. And then on top of this, getting to see, like, Ginger kick some ass, and like, oh my god, like, that Ginger scene was 10 out of 10. But besides that, majority of the episode was just fodder getting killed and being mopped up, and a couple characters just running around, which we already knew what was going on. For instance, hunting down the twin sister, and then also having it to where there was some flags on the girlfriend that was going to be taken away or killed, because we kind of already knew something like this was going to happen, judging by how last week's episode was handled and the way this episode was done and going towards that direction. So there's not really anything that was just something we didn't already know. And it kind of disappoints me a little bit with Gangsta, because we have one episode left, a lot of questions, and there's a lot of story going on here. I mean, there's many things right now with the story, but it just felt like this episode was extremely rushed in a sense. Like, that's the best way to put it. It felt like it was rushed. Like, there's just so much going on, but it did not stick focus on some of these scenes that needed to have more focus. Like, some of our characters didn't have, their story fleshed out, or you couldn't really grow attached to some of these other characters that were dying, and so it's kind of upsetting to see it like that, because Gangsta is a really good series, and I love Gangsta, but I've noticed, like, this episode, it just did not seem like it was executed right. So yeah. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.